Seating table 103 with Jasmine Vo.
Welcome to the chaos.
Welcome back to the chaos. What's up, Danny?
What's up, man? How are you?
So today on the show, we have a very good friend of ours, a nightlife staple through the years. She's still in it, killing the game. Love her to death. She's like a sister to me. Jasmine Vo.
Hi, guys.
Hi, friend.
Thanks for having me.
Welcome.
It's weird seeing you guys during the daylight.
Right? Let's get some lights in here, man.
Right?
We need some.
Fully clothed in the daylight.
Yeah. We need some black lights and strobe lights. We'll be good to go.
For the record, we've never hooked up. Usually, bottle service girls are in nothing.
Oh, well, she went straight there. I love it.
I'm just saying that could have been taken the wrong way. I'm
Has
like,
it
wait
been-
a minute.
Has it been thought about?
I was about to say, so since you went there, let's talk about that, because as we all know, you spend a lot of time in a realm with somebody, you get to know people, and then there's
Right.
also, you include a lot of drinking, some extracurriculars, some after parties, late night, emotions are high, and
No, I was really good. I never shit where I eat, you know. I'm all about stacking cash. So I did not hook up with anybody. I've had moments. A few of them you stopped, Mike, but
yeah, I've helped you.
you know, a couple 10 shots of 1942 blackout. He was like, "No, Jasmine." I was like, "Okay, I gotta go." And I would Houdini myself out.
I met Jasmine when I worked. One of my first jobs in LA was the SLS Hotel, where she was one of the cocktail servers. And then from there, I got brought over to Hyde, and she was at both places. So that's how I got close with her. And I got to say, she has been like a savior to me in the last 8 years. And we'll get into that story a little bit later, but she's probably one of the people I am the most grateful for on this planet,
That's great.
not
Very
just in
sweet.
LA.
So let's start from the beginning. How'd you get into the nightlife scene? How long have you been in the service industry?
I've been in the service industry, I think, like my whole life. Like, food is a big part of my family, you know, Asian families, any minority family, like food is like the hub of everything. So my parents, you know, on top of like all the small businesses they had as immigrants, they had like a catering business. So, you know, I was my mom's like line cook at the age of like 3, like peeling like the egg roll, like things or whatever. And, you know, fast forward to my first college degree was in communications, and I was a reporter for ESPN. And I landed the dream job, and I was traveling, you know, 200 days out of the year, just interviewing athletes in their hometown. And at a very young age, I landed it because I had an internship that led into like a job. And in hindsight, I was really young for that. But my dad was like, "Baby, this is like the dream job of a lot of people. You got to keep going." And I'm like, "Yeah, but nobody is my age around me. It's super lonely being on the road." Keep in mind, this is like pre like iPhones and internet.
Yeah.
And like I was getting around the US using Thomas Guide. so it was fucking hard.
I was thinking of that randomly
Like-
popped in my head last night. Like, how did we get around back then?
Right.
Like, we just knew where streets were.
No, you had
Right.
the GPS. Well, you used to have to map quest it and then follow
We're
it
talking
on the
about
map.
pre that.
We're like pre-map quest. Like we didn't
No,
even
I'm
have,
talking about like
I'm
I
talking
remember
like
with the t-
dial-up internet. Like
Yeah.
I look young, but you know, your girl has a couple years on her.
When I first moved to LA, we had that. What was it? The Thomas guy.
Yeah, the Thomas Guide. You had to like
It was-
C5 and like you got
Have
to
you ever
map
used that
it
thing?
out.
No,
Bro, it's like
you
a
guys,
big.
Oh my
you
god!
you guys are a lot older than me.
Bro, it's a big book. That's how I used to get around LA, man. You have to find like L1 to 3.
We're gonna get you a whole collection,
Bro, right?
And we're gonna
Wait,
teach you
hold
how
on.
to use
So people used to tell me, "Oh, LA is like a grid," so that's where that came from. How they
Most
grid it out.
cities
on
are
top?
grids.
Okay.
Most cities are grids.
Yeah.
And
Growing up in Manhattan, it's the same.
at the time, I think I'd been in like 5 years and working for ESPN, and my dad got really sick. So I was like, all right, I gotta come back to California. And I decided to go back to school for a fashion degree, which is my second degree. I have addiction to college education. And
By the way, Jasmine is very fashionable. Like, she looks amazing right now.
She's always stunting everywhere.
thanks, guys. Thanks.
Even when we just go on drives during like the pandemic, she was my pandemic buddy. We would just go. She's like, "Let's just go on a drive, get out of the house," and she's like matching head to toe. I'm like, "You're not getting out of your car. What are you doing?"
Right.
Like,
It's a vibe. It's a vibe.
it's a her. But you know what? I love that because that's always been her. Like Jasmine is one of the most authentic people I've ever met.
Yeah.
So you just weren't a bottle server, though. Let's touch on that because you actually do a lot more in the hospitality industry. You were a bottle server at a point, but...
At a point, because that's how I put myself through school.
Yeah.
So
let's touch on anything else you were doing outside of just the bottle service part. And how did those compare?
I was like when I put myself through school, paid for college cash, and I was working at night, didn't get out till like 5 o'clock in the morning, and then I was in class at 8 a.m. And it was like... basically I didn't sleep. On top of that, I was like fashion styling for celebrities. I was designing like men's collections and all like the things. But I think after 10 years of doing nightlife, as you both know, my health was like deteriorating. I think the last year of my nightlife career, I was getting bronchitis on a monthly basis. I have asthma. So, the smoke did not help, and the blunts being rolled and the cigarettes inside the smoke machines and all of that jazz just did not help my lungs. And I was just like, you know what, it's just time. And I knew there was like a means to an end, and like we always say, it's golden handcuffs. You work 4 hours and you make a couple $1,000s, and you're like, I'm just gonna give it one more year.
That's such a great term.
One more year. There is a lot of terminology in nightlife, and one of them is golden handcuffs.
What was the place you made the most money at in the city?
It depends, because as a bottle service waitress, it becomes a career because you always have to work at the newest spot. So you're always chasing that dollar.
So what places did you work at?
I worked at the Rooftop at the Thompson Beverly Hills. And I worked at Soho House, which I didn't make a lot of money, but I made a lot of connections there. I worked at Sayers Club.
We've all worked at the Sayers Club.
Right.
Yeah.
I worked at, I moonlighted at all the SB nightclubs when they need to like fill in. And then I worked at what was that Russian nightclub across the street from Area?
Playhouse?
No, at Area on La Cienega.
I don't think I was here. I don't think I was living here.
Maybe you guys weren't here yet, but it was owned by the Russian mob, and I worked there.
I got trained at Area, actually.
I never worked at Area. That was when I first met, I think, everybody that worked at SBE. And I was kind of hired unconventionally. Like, they didn't open call for Sayers because, as you both know, Sayers is not like your typical nightclub. You need a woman who can eloquently talk to like that kind of clientele, like Prince and Stevie Wonder and all of that.
So for people who aren't familiar with it, Sayers Club is actually one of my favorite places in LA. It's a live music venue.
It was the first high-end live
high-end live music venue with bottle service. They had amazing food. But the thing about this is they'd have a lot of performers that would be there on these live music trends. But we would have people. I was working one night and Steven Tyler just was in there and hopped up on stage. And Prince, I've seen Prince perform with you and
Miguel
Stevie
the whole Def Jam.
Stevie Wonder.
Everybody. Like Black Keys.
Yeah. And
I remember walking in. And it was like Kenny G playing, and I called my mom, and I was like, "Mom, listen." He's like, "Bam, bam, bam, bam."
But the coolest thing about this spot, though, is like it was never a thing that they were coming in. They would just come in and just love the vibe and just hop on stage.
Exactly.
Like you never knew what was gonna happen when you worked or when you were at the Sayers Club.
Every night was life-changing.
Which was fucking awesome.
Life-changing.
And then a friend that we all know, and one of my best friends, my buddy Stevie Brock, became the MC, and he's an incredible singer as well. So I was there constantly from working there or just being there to support my buddy. And like, yo, man, we've seen some cool shit. I've had my birthday. You hosted my birthday one year for me there.
Yeah.
Oh,
so
man,
much
Let's
fun.
explain the layout, because when Sayers Club opened up, it was like a speakeasy.
Loud.
You had to, the front of it was a Papaya King hot dog stand.
Yeah.
And people didn't know it. People were eating hot dogs, and they're all these like fucking super well-dressed people going into the back part of the kitchen.
The biggest acts in music, and then the biggest celebrities on TV, movies would like walk through the door, and you just never knew.
Right.
So it was super fun to work in the very beginning.
So there's
great.
and it was like the red leather sofas and super everything. It was
Everything
dark.
was dope. Like it was so dope.
It was really cool. We all worked there.
We had a
loved
fun
it.
time. But as far as like the most money, I would say like randomly, it would be the nights when I randomly worked at the other clubs. Like some whale would come in and be like, "You," and I'd be like, "Who?" He would be like, "You," and I'd be like, "Her?" He's like, "You," and I'm like, "Oh God, here we go." And you both know that Okay, I'm a very good waitress at the time. I still am. I can run circles around people. But there are certain lines that I just did not cross. And everybody knew that about me. Like, you ain't touching my ass and you're not going to take me home. Like, it just was not my MO, and I do not do after parties. And that kept my sanity. But I think that girls who did do that, I'm not knocking anybody who did do that, definitely got put on the best nights, got put on the best tables. And I gave like zero fucks. I was like, I just want to make my money. We pooled anyways. I would rather wait on the entire room than like whore myself out on one person. That was just my MO. And I just didn't care. So when they picked me, I would be like, fuck. Because, you have to, it's a tango with these whales. You just don't know how far.
A whale is a very large bottle buyer.
Yeah.
That's what they're referred to
Another
as.
term.
Yes.
Another term. Somebody who comes in and spends a lot of money.
A lot of money.
In the industry,
like
referred to as a
offensive
whale.
amount of money. Like it could pay all of our rents, all of our car payments, and then some. Like
I've been in nightclubs where whales have come in and dropped $1 million and then tipped us $100,000.
That I haven't had 100,000, but I think my biggest tip was like my extra tip was 50,000. So like the autograt was 50,000, and then the extra. And you actually worked with me. It was at Hyde, and Ian was working. And I remember that month was just really slow, and it just takes one table to change your life and to pay your rent. And it was hella slow.
Well, let's explain to people who haven't worked in this, in this scene. You're not getting all that money yourself. Like what happens at the end of the night?
You pool it, so everybody gets points. So there's like the bartenders get points, the fucking bar manager gets points, all the waitresses, the TSA, the host, everybody gets a cut. So but what a lot of people don't understand is it's a manufactured best night of your life. Like you think this is such an amazing random night, but it's highly produced. The tables are plotted. Every person that works at that nightclub is gorgeous, even the busser. Like, there's nobody who's unattractive that works at the nightclub.
So that's a good segue for this question. You brought up something really interesting that you said, that you had to talk to clients at Sayers differently than you had to talk to people at other clubs.
1,000%.
Can you delve into that a little bit more?
There is like, we all know the industry is very sexist, very misogynistic, and you're kind of, and I probably get a lot of shit for this, but you're kind of like borderline like stripper, but you don't take off your clothes. You're basically naked. You're in like, I can't tell you how many times I walked in and a manager just like pulled out like 2 pieces. I'm like, what's that for? And he's like, this is for you. And I'm like, oh, thanks for the heads up, or whatever that it is. So you're so exposed wearing like 2 pieces, right? And I used to get in so much trouble for wearing like pantyhose because I just didn't want my shit to fall out, Or like sometimes I'd be like, I have like 34D boobs. I cannot fit in this top. Like a nipple is gonna pop out. And they're like, I don't care. So I would get in trouble for wearing even pasties, Like I did whatever I need to do, or I would like over accessorize or like get extra hair extensions put in my hair to like cover myself. Like I did everything and anything I possibly could to just have a little bit of like dignity. So when you dealt with some of these buyers, historically, I think Vegas bottle service girls and even some LA bottle service girls, they're really naive and they're really young and they're just down to, let them like feel them up or flirt with them. And of course I'd be super friendly and like super fun, I had a nickname. Her name was the Phoenix. So, in those situations, the Phoenix would come out. I mean, the Phoenix retired a long time ago. I haven't seen her in a minute, but that was my alter ego when I dealt with these clients. I was like, okay, Phoenix, you're up,
See, and
girl.
that's what people don't understand. Like,
I hated the Phoenix, but I hated it.
She was so much fun.
But there was a 50-50 to it because you made us a lot of money, but then at the end of the night, you weren't going home with the bottle buyer, but I had to take care of her and drive her home.
Yeah.
So I had to deal with her drunk ass just being like, I want this, or I want to go here to eat. I'm like, bro, I'm going home.
You had to keep drinking because that was the only way. And you're drinking top shelf because you have to ramp up that bill. And, that night at Hyde when I made that 50, I mean, I remember it was me, you, Brian, and Corey, and we were dancing confetti because we were so happy that we made rent. Like, all of us were like, I don't know how I'm going to pay rent this month. And we made like $5,000. And the guy came in at 1:45 a.m.
That's amazing.
And he spent like so much money in 20 minutes.
Yeah.
I mean, my arms were like so yoked at that time because I was just like pouring and pouring and pouring and pouring. But that was probably like, but that's the regular, right? Like you can make no money every single night. And then one night it's like, boom, $5,000.
Yeah.
Which is the normalcy.
And that's what people understand about, you said about how you had to dress. Like people who go to clubs for the first time and they think, oh, look at these skanky chicks, like, working in pantyhose. That's not your choice. That's by design of whoever's running the business.
It's a manufactured night. And
you're also putting on a facade. We all wear masks in the nightclub industry.
Right.
Like that's not who we are. It's about money. At the end of the day, we're trying to make money and you have to play the game to a certain extent.
1,000%.
Right.
And then all the guys were like guys. So you weren't hired unless you could be like the guy that the buyer wanted to be friends with.
Right.
Because it's a vibe again.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of the girls we work with, you included, you're hustlers.
You had to be.
You have to be a hustler you have to have thick skin. You have to be a hustler.
I don't remember what executive from MGM came in, and it was like opening month at Sayers. And, he was probably doing like God knows how much blow, like in the corner. And, we just look the other way or we cover. And Mike and I used to have the system where I was like, hey, if I take the shot, just like I'm going to go left and just grab it from me. And we would just, fake drink. I'm sorry, but that's what you did.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can't. But when you can fake drink, you do.
But that's what we're talking about with the hustle and the team effort. Because, most of the people are good and the buyers want it. But we got to the point now where, when we've talked about this before, Danny, how there was a certain group of TSAs that were on it and knew how to work. And then the good cocktail waitresses would pick us and single us out and be like, we're working together. So I had that system with you. And then I took that to several other cocktail waitresses and we would just kill it. Cause it like you said, it's like a tango, not only with the buyer, but with us, because you're moving a certain way and we got to work instinctively together.
You have to
make sure this all works. So I make sure that you don't get fucked up. You make sure that I'm taken care of and the buyer's going to tip me. And then that we're making money for everybody else in the club. You have to have this, me and Sydney Brown had this intuitive sense. I knew what she wanted before she could even tell me.
Yep.
And you got to that point with a lot of us, and that's how we would kill it. And that's who would get the best tables every night.
Yeah. How many times did you do that trick where they do the tray of shots? And there was always that one tray, that one shot that was water for your server.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
It was we just knew how to play the game. And I love those little tricks. I think people would be interested in little tricks like that. Did you have anything else that you did while you were working that maybe the client didn't know about, or even your TSA or the guests?
I think, it was one of the things we always talked about is you never let them pour, and you just pour out the bottle. So, I mean, I still till this day I could pour a bottle of Grey Goose in 5 seconds. Yeah. You know what I mean?
In 2 drinks.
In 2, it's not, and champagne I can literally pour 5 bottles quickly. It's every time we go, it's an art. Every time I go on vacation with anybody, they're like, what just fucking happened? And I was like, oh, and I didn't even, they don't know me like that. Yeah. And it's not like I'm ashamed of my nightlife career, but I'm in a different part of my life now. So, those moments when I'm on vacation with friends, new friends, different friends, I'm like, oh my God. And I'm just laughing in the corner. But I think there's it's just a lot of it was just survival and a lot of cadence. I mean, you have to have really, 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 really thick skin. And, for me, it was a lot of times my uniform would get ripped off quite a bit. So I had to cover up underneath and do what I need to do. But it was always you had to pack yourself. Because if you didn't find your allies in the nightclub, you're fucked.
Yeah.
You're completely fucked. You would be attacked every night. no one would help you out. You know, people just treated you, essentially bottle service waitresses are just products, and people would treat you like a product. So survival is like packing out. And most of the time when you like when I would like work in other clubs, like nobody wanted me there, you know, until like I brought in all the money. And they're like, oh, we like Jasmine now because she knows what she's doing. And, you know, you have to stay basically kind of sober.
Yeah.
You know, but not too sober where you're cussing people out. But you kind of have to, you know, it's like a tango.
Yeah.
This seems like a nice place to take a break.
Just real quick, I never forget the time I first met Jasmine. I think they brought you in for 14. And you came in with that, like, I'm the shit attitude. And we were like, who the fuck is this? I remember, like, maybe you even said, like, I'm going to get the best table.
I don't remember saying that, but that could be me. It's very Capricorn.
I think we even maybe had butted heads. I don't know if that was you or someone else. Probably not you. But
I just wasn't taking any shit.
Exactly.
That just was not.
And that's what you needed, especially to work at 14. We talked about 14 before. But it was one of the craziest parties ever done in LA. And,
I mean, that's why they hired me. I remember the interview process. There was like 1,000 and some girls, and they picked like 8 of us, right? Yeah. We had like fucking 4 interviews. It was like Kostas, Mio, Rob, and one other person. I can't remember. And they were like, why should we hire you? And I was like, you fucking tell me. Like, you brought me in 4 times. Like, I'm not fucking desperate. Obviously, you like me. So just fucking hire me. Like, what the fuck are you doing wasting my fucking time?
Right.
And Rob's like, you're hired.
And that was like the CEO of the company and like the heads of everything. And
and for people who don't... people who are listening to this and have ever worked with Kostas and Mio, they were the 2 most intimidating
people.
Big ass motherfuckers.
But great dudes.
Kostas was
great
just
dudes.
A Greek, gorgeous guy.
Gorgeous man. Like, see, he is gorgeous.
He's fucking gorgeous.
And he's like a Greek god. Like, everybody loved him.
Yes.
Like, but you know, the reason why I had that kind of grit was because I opened Soho House. You know, I was talking to Quentin Tarantino on a daily basis, and you know, Elton John, and you know, every A-list celebrity possible. So I was like, who the fuck are these fucking 4 people talking shit to me? Go fuck yourself.
And that's what they loved.
But that's what they loved. And every girl, I would say, in nightlife had their own style, own personality. Not everybody was like that, but I would say, like, my cadence, generally speaking, is I'm very charming and very sweet, but you know, don't fucking poke the bear. Like, don't push me against the wall, because I'll fucking
like
Phoenix
come
will
for
burn
you.
you.
Well, like you said, dude, like we all had to wear that face, right? So I had a different experience with Jasmine when I first met her, because when I was at the SLS Hotel, that's when I first moved here, and I was broke, and I was walking from Hollywood and Highland to the SLS Hotel every day, and then
What
walking
is that, like,
back.
2 miles each way?
It was like 3 miles.
3 miles each way.
And then I had to go work at Create at night. And
But don't feel sorry for him. He's from New York. He walks all the time.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
I would feel sorry for her though, because she, like, me and her were a
Like,
pair.
you walked in LA?
Right?
Yo, dude, that's
3 miles?
that was a lot though.
That's a lot.
Yeah,
That was a lot at 6 a.m. after
Yeah.
I worked the night
But in
before.
New York, you walk 6 miles on a regular.
Yeah, I know,
job.
but I'm not in New York anymore. This is a very different thing, and I couldn't afford a car now.
3 miles in LA
But
is fucking long.
It's a long walk. Again, after the night before too, but like, so I met her and I would feel so bad for her because like I would come into work on Sundays and I just wasn't there, but she was so cool to be like, yo, go nap. When I need you, I'll wake you up. Because we would open up at 9 a.m., but I just finished a shift at 5,
Well,
got
same.
home at 6. Yeah.
I fucking, like, the stupid thing is they would make us wait to be tipped out. And I'm like, can you just leave in the safe
Yeah.
and have me come back? Like,
And,
why
like-
am I sitting here
But
for
the coolest,
hours?
But the coolest thing about her is I was really trying to figure out a lot of my life and who I was. And I remember one time I had a really bad anxiety attack at the pool. And like, yo, from that moment
the pool
on,
was popping off, and I was like, where the fuck is he? Like,
yeah. I was in, bro, I was in the
where?
I
I'm
was in-
dying out here, and like the pool is like a football field. Keep in mind, so
yeah,
you're
yeah.
running back and forth and back and forth.
She's looking for me and she comes into the service station and I'm sitting there in tears because I'm having a full-blown anxiety attack, full-blown panic attack because of just what was going on. And then the next 2 months, I didn't realize she was doing this, but she didn't tip me out all of my tips because she knew I would go and do stupid shit with it. So she kept it and she's like, yo, we're going car shop and I have $2,000 of your money. I'm going to help you get a car. And I was like, that's the nicest thing anybody's ever fucking done for me.
I mean, some people might call that theft, but I was
Like, correct. But
I
like,
was his like savings account.
yo, no,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
she, but and like, and I heard all like, yo, watch out for people in LA, watch out for people in LA. And I'm like, yo, that's fucking awesome. And then after that, like, she's just been like a big sister. And it's funny because we've gotten closer again during the pandemic because she lives a couple blocks away, but I was doing my thing traveling. She was doing her thing, but it's just like, you do meet some dope people sometimes that really do care and have a good heart. So it's like, I heard about her that she had this attitude, and I'm like, but I got to see the person without the mask, which was the incredibly beautiful side of her. And I'm extremely grateful for her in that sense. But like,
But
good
why
people
the
do
attitude?
exist.
I was just calling it for what it is, and that's the fucking shit that I'm talking about in the industry. It was
Yes.
just like, if I spoke up, she has an attitude. But it wasn't like I was dramatic. I was like, what this is not efficient. like what are we doing here? Like, if we're not making money, if this is not efficient, what are you doing?
See,
You know?
yeah, and SBE was run by mostly men, and when you get a strong woman, and I mean, I think in any industry, as soon as she speaks up, she's like, oh, she has an attitude, and that's
Right.
just culturally that
Yeah.
we're not used to seeing that. And like
I think
when I met you, sorry,
No, I was probably, not to knock anybody, one of the few that had like a college degree
Yeah.
prior and another like career.
right.
So, but God, what were
No, I was saying you like when I first met you, yeah, you came off maybe a little brash, but you just because you knew your shit, you were good at your job, and you could be like that. There was other people that were bitches. I'm sorry, they were bitchy,
Timid.
for no reason. Like
Very entitled.
you were rude and bitchy, and you ordered me around, and you sucked at your job.
right?
So immediately, I'm like, who's this person? But then when I respect hard workers.
right,
Like, cause that, that's what I had a high bar set for myself when I worked. So when other people didn't reach that bar, it would make me mad. But when I saw you work, I was like, oh, okay.
yeah. I mean, to be fair, I was probably over it 4 years in. I should have tapped out, but I don't like. I come from immigrant family, middle class, and I was just hustling in LA, and it was golden handcuffs. I just needed that second. For a lot of people who want to move to LA to like live your dreams, when you are a freelance actor or stylist or whatever, that check does not come right away. That check comes like 6 months later, 8 months later.
Right.
So you
6
need
years later.
you need like a cash cow. You need constant cash coming in.
Right.
And that's what nightlife was.
Yeah.
So, my me being brash is not my normal self. I think I was just like frustrated. Like I just didn't want to be there anymore.
So what other tips would you give to people that are thinking about moving out here, or who are now looking to, after this pandemic, looking to start a new career and then looking at hospitality, nightlife, restaurants as a way to feed that cash cow? What advice would you give to somebody new just starting, or somebody going through a hard time right now?
This is what I always say to all of the staff I always meet throughout the years is you can chase that dollar, like work at the hottest places and whatever. But the best thing that you can do is work somewhere that's consistent and just focus on you. Like you don't need to work at the hottest places. You don't need to do this and you don't need to do that. Just focus on your craft. And yeah, your friend can come home and say, I made $1,200 and you just made $200. But that $1,200 is not going to last every time at that nightclub, right? It's just that opening month or that one time. But you hear it in the industry, right? You hear other people talk and you want that because I think naturally if you come to the city, you're a little bit competitive. You want to be the best. But the reality of it is just take that consistent money, work somewhere that isn't like mentally taxing on you. It doesn't make you feel like you're selling your soul.
Yeah.
Well, let's get into that point because this is something we'd love to touch on. And a big thing with what we deal with, and I don't think people realize it, the mental toll that nightlife has taken on you. Like, what was that like during those years, especially being that person and being in the man's world?
Yeah.
Especially at that time. What did that mentally do to you? How did that affect you?
I mean, my experience was slightly different than your normal. Like, I had just lost my dad, so I was like numb, and I didn't like things didn't like really hit me. I think till when I started to really heal like 5 years later. And then I was like, oh shit, now I can feel things. So now these things really bother me.
So this was 5 years into your
Yeah,
night
5 years
life.
into it. And then I was like, oh, this is what it feels like to be sad or happy. But like I didn't, when you have a loss, it doesn't like that. It doesn't, you're just numb. There's nothing, grief is not linear. Grief comes in waves, as we all know. So, and that pain never goes away when you lose like a very close member of your family. It's always there, but it gets better. You honor them in the ways that you honor them. So, for me, I would say my biggest, toll was there was such a toxic body image thing going on. I was, 30 years old, 105 pounds. Like that's like not right. And when I left to start, a career in opening restaurants, it took a long time to unpack that, like to eat a carb and not feel so much shame. like it's a fucking piece of bread, Jasmine. Like who cares? And it took, I would say, just till now that even now it's like when I look in the mirror, it's like there's like a little bit of like body dysmorphia because you're told. I mean, if I can't even tell you how many times in my hand where I was told like you need to lose weight because I was like 115 pounds or like whatever that case is. So I wasn't eating. I was at the gym 3 times a day, and looking back at like those photos of myself, I didn't publish them or anything. I just, everyone takes fitness photos for just the progress. And I looked so sad. I was like frail. And now a lot of my close friends and like college buddies are like, I actually was really concerned for you at that time because you were just bones at that point. But that was what I needed to look like in order like to work. If I gained some weight, then miraculously I was like called off. Like I wasn't working. So
That's crazy. The stuff that, this is stuff like when we're working that you don't think about. Like for me as a TSA,
Absolutely.
you don't think about what the servers are going through.
right.
Like we respect that you have to deal with these assholes on a nightly basis, but then there's because we're all dealing with our own mental thing. So, that's amazing. Thank you for opening up about that because I'm glad we have a female voice on the show. So thank you for
that's, it took a long time for me to even like admit that, to even, I was like, am I going to feel this way for like the rest of my life? Like there were girls who were just naturally, there are women who are naturally just really small, and that's their, genetics. I've always been way more athletic. I was like a star gymnast. And so I always had like more curves than like, say like a Jamie, and I don't know when it hit me. I probably like a couple years ago when I had like a health emergency, and I was just like, "What are you doing? Like what is this like toxic body dysmorphia thing you have going on? Like you need to figure this out." It wasn't like I'd ever had like an eating disorder, but I just hated what it looked like in the mirror.
So-
no matter how fit I was, which is
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy, but it was from men, my managers particularly, and even some of the bottle buyers. Like I remember this guy was like, "You're a little thick." I was like, "Excuse me?"
What?
And I'm like 110 pounds. I'm
Wow.
5'1". And he would be like, and I was like, "Yeah, I am." like, and I was,
Send her my way,
Yeah,
okay?
right? I
I'll
was
take
like-
that.
I'll take that.
you know,
I'll take
and
that.
I would just make a joke and be like, "I shouldn't have ate the whole Ben and Jerry's." And then he would start laughing, or but that hits you.
Yeah.
If people keep saying that to you, like you're thick, then, and there's nothing wrong with being thick, but at that time, it wasn't a good thing.
Yeah, he's
What's
not
that?
complimenting you. He's
It's
it's
not a compliment.
underhanded,
Backhanded insult.
Right. It's a backhanded
Yeah.
insult.
So, what advice would you? Because I'm sure there's so many more females that feel the same way. Like, what advice would you give to somebody that's going through that right now?
I think like I did this weird journey when I left. I didn't wear makeup for like a year, and I didn't work out for a year because I didn't know I didn't recognize the person in the mirror without makeup. That's how much I was like piling on makeup. Because keep in mind, we're leaving at 5 a.m. I was going to school or styling, and then I would nap and then wake up and work at night. So I rarely looked in the mirror. And so I always had makeup on. I can't go on set, without looking done, especially being in the wardrobe department. Like that's the industry is beauty basically and fashion. So not wearing makeup for a year was a really interesting experience. And, when you're a bottle service waitress, you're getting hit on by everybody for, very vanity reasons. And then when you're not wearing makeup and you're not working out and no one's paying attention to you, it kind of like fucks with you. But not that I need that attention, but there's like a weird disconnect, right? And even some of our friends who no longer work in bottle service either, they still have that. And I'm like, why? Like, why do you need that attention? Like, who cares?
Right.
Like,
It's
who
like
cares?
they transferred their real life now it's social media. That's
Right.
People think they need to be a different person for.
Right. And just I had to like get to know myself all over again and what I look like naturally, and then just like tone from there instead of deprive myself to look a certain way, and then no makeup for like a year and doing what I need to do. So I can't give again, like my best advice is just to choose an environment that supports you and is like just constant cash instead of like chasing that big payout. But I understand people who want to get paid out. I don't even know if people make money doing bottle service anymore.
I think it's
on
like
a regular. I think it's a dying industry.
Luckily, in the festival world, that's why I have so many cocktail waitresses now that come to me, because on the festival side, that's where the money is now, because a buyer is going to want to make a day out of it and see 5 or 6 of their favorite DJs and have 6-7 hours to chill, take their drugs, enjoy the night, instead of just 2 hours in the crowded nightclubs. You get your own space, and the festivals, they have their own suites. So it's kind of shifted that way, and that's where most, like, I have a plethora of cocktail waitresses from all over the U.S. and especially after this pandemic, they're like, I'm not going back to nightclubs, because I don't think nightclubs will come back the way they used to be. It was already a dying breed.
It depends on what state.
Yeah. Well, in LA,
Florida and Atlanta,
Yeah.
they're like,
Yeah.
but
in LA, we were in it during the highlights.
The nights we're seeing in Florida, though. Like
No,
in
I don't
Atlanta,
think anybody ever did, besides Vegas.
the money
but-
nights, I mean.
Yeah, and we were in the heyday too.
Yeah.
Like now, definitely the last few years, as we've all been out of the nightclubs here, they're not making anywhere near the same. The companies are taking the 20% gratuity has now gone to 12% in a lot of the nightclubs. The house is taking a majority of tips. So any buyers listening to this, make sure you over tip.
right.
Anyway, hey, tip your
Tip anyways.
Tip your fucking server.
Everyone needs tip
Money.
everybody.
Tip your servers.
right. Tip
Well,
everybody.
that's the coolest thing about being like, we can tell who is in hospitality and who's not when you go out places.
1000%.
Because we always overtip. Like, no matter, even if the service is bad, I'm still giving you your 20%. I don't know what's going on in your life. You might be having a bad night because your world's crumbling down around you. We've all had that where we're working through our own anxieties and our own like different turbulences. That person's there trying to make a living. They're serving you. Support them.
Right. And I think everyone should work in the service industry just to understand how people are. And I don't think it's not something that you want to do, right? Like you don't fucking grow up and say, I want to work in the service industry.
Some people do.
I mean,
Like-
I think it's they do in a way, like they want to own a hotel, they want to
Yeah.
own a bar, or they
Right.
want to own a restaurant. You need to work in the service industry to get through.
Get those experiences.
Yeah, to get those experiences for sure.
But that's now you're talking about like a culinary experience. Like I don't think any of us we're gonna work in nightlife for 10 years.
No, but some people just fall into it though.
right.
I did
It's
not.
true.
Yeah, I did not expect to be.
I think it's
in my
fun
position.
in your early 20s. I will say tap out after 25.
So that's actually really good, because when I shared my story of how I got out of nightlife, I was pretty much forced out because I'm an idiot. I jumped off a mountain on a mountain bike, and my career ended right. My service industry / bartending / everything ended right there, and you got out. I mean, mentally, and then COVID for you, right?
Yeah,
Mostly,
COVID.
Mikey.
Yeah.
So what was that like? Was it a decision on your end? You're like, just that's it for nightlife specifically?
I was really fortunate that three of my friends who I opened the Thompson Hotel Group with decided to open a hotel group, and they needed someone to like be a managing director. So I took, a huge pay cut, but I was like super happy doing it. And, I've been opening restaurants since. Like, I will say one thing, everybody's like, oh, why do you love working in the hospitality industry? And I think there's like a community that we have. Nobody goes hungry. If someone called me tomorrow and said, need to pay rent, I'd be like, I got you. It's not the best, but I got you. You know what I mean? Like that's and you get fed. You have it's like there's, I don't know, it's like a underwritten rule or something.
It's just the family feel.
It's
like
just a family feel.
Because when we work in these clubs, like we said, it takes all of us working together. So like, we're never gonna let the boys struggle. We're never gonna, like, no one's ever. I've always had the support, and that's why when I've always heard LA is a shitty place or nightlife is a shitty place, it's like some of the best people in my life. You're one of my best friends. You're a great friend of mine, and now we're going into more to business acquisitions together. Like, that would have never happened if it didn't come from nightlife. If I didn't learn that I can trust you guys in that setting.
And it's all people we worked with.
Yeah.
Like, people come here and they may experience LA for a week, and they're like, oh, that place is fucking shit. It's because you're experiencing everything that we've talked about. And it's this whole hour, like the shitty fake version of LA. But there are a lot of good people here. And that's what we want to show people, is that people that work at these clubs aren't pieces of shit.
Yeah.
You know?
I think what a lot of people don't understand is, life has ebbs and flows. And for all the great things you want, there's also shadows to those things. So, God doesn't give with both hands. It's one and the other, always one and the other. And so when you sit there and you're like, this is shit, this is shit, this is shit, I'm like, because you're shit. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Well,
like, that's
true.
Well
that's
said.
the fucking truth. And if you see it the other way, then it won't be that way. So you attract what you see.
Yeah.
Right?
Pile of shit is going to attract the flies.
Exactly. I mean, you choose if you're going to have a good day. I would say the sustainability of all of our careers is we all chose that we're going to have a really good night tonight. Did we not all say that? Like,
Oh my God. It's a feeling. Like,
it's a feeling. We're like,
you
we're going to
knew.
have a good night.
if you felt negative, you had a shitty night.
We're like, go home.
Unless you started drinking and
Right.
had fun, or I don't know.
But you could not start off the night like shit. Like, you had to, like,
Yeah.
you had to get into
It's the
it.
law of attraction.
All right. So we have a few things we like to do, like tell your favorite celebrity story. We don't want you to name who it is, but you can just maybe name the experience.
Your favorite nightlife story.
Nightlife story. It could be anything, but one of your favorites or one of your worst.
I have a really funny one that is a crowd pleaser. So I remember I had like a whole section and like, just clear them out. And I was like, what are you talking about? It's like all of our regulars. He's like, I need you to clear them out. And that's like rude, because you have these like regulars that come in, they're spending $1,200 for like a little cocktail table. And I was like, okay, well, you got to go. Bye. And he was just like, Mr. Pink's coming in. And I was like, who? I don't know.
You remember Mr. Pink?
Of course.
Oh, man.
I don't know if it's the same Mr. Pink.
No,
but-
it's the same Mr. Pink.
So I don't know if you're working that night. So, we're all, it's like we clear the section, we make sure it's all legit. And it's like 1:58. And I've been waiting for this guy for like 45 minutes. I'm like, he's not going to come in. Because that also happens, right? Is the whales change their
Was
minds.
it at Greystone?
No, it was at Sayers.
I think I was working that night.
It was at Sayers. He was making his rounds. So, it was like, I was like, Rob's like, okay, well, we're going to wait for him for like 15 more minutes. And I'm like fucking exhausted. I'm like, whatever. And all of a sudden, you hear on the radio, like, Mr. Pink is here. And keep in mind, in nightlife, we all have radios and we all have like codes. So the reason why we work so quickly is because we all have like walkies and earpieces in. And this guy walks, all I see is like 8 linebackers, right, in suits, like walk in. And I was like, okay. And then they like clear out of the way, and there's like this tiny little Asian man. What's the guy from The Hangover?
Mr. Chow.
Like Mr. Chow, right? He comes up.
Yo, Mr. Pink, no offense if you're listening, bro. We still love you.
Yeah.
And he sits
still
there.
love you.
He like sits in the corner, and I'm like trying like with every being of my body.
What's
not
up,
to laugh,
bitches?
right?
That's exactly what
he
you would
has
say.
like a handler,
Yep.
like they all have handlers. And the handler gives me the black MX, and his driver's license. And we're not allowed to talk to him directly. You talk to the handler. And I politely like leaned over to Rob and I was like, are you sure you want me to handle this table? Because typically like very wealthy Asian men love like American women. Not that I'm not American, but like white. I'm just going to say it. So I was like, are you sure you don't want like Lauren, Amanda, like Jay? He's like, no, it's okay. It's fine. And I was like, okay, whatever. So they all kind of sit there and I go into the server station and, you know, there is like a protocol. We have a ID scanner to make sure it's a legit ID. We also have a credit card scanner, as you both know, to make sure it's and we've all been trained to like spot fakes and whatnot, because a lot of times people use fake credit cards, fake cash to pay for like the night out, and it just sucks when that happens. So we're all highly trained like to do this. So I go back there and I look on the license and it says no name, but it's a real California ID. And then I look on the Amex and it also says no name.
It literally says no name.
It literally says no name. And I'm like, what in the fuck is this? Like, who is he? Like, who is he? Right? And I'm like, okay. So, you know, he's just like popping bottles, going off. I think you may have ran to like hide. You ran somewhere to grab me like another like magnum of Ace, like rosé or something like that. He was just like popping off, and it was just quite strange.
Probably Colony.
Probably somewhere. And it's like 4 a.m. and he's just not drinking, but there's just like $100,000 worth of champagne on the table poured out. Like, no one is drinking.
And the club is closed at this point. It's literally him,
us,
his 7 girls that were there,
these
the bodyguards. Yeah.
And we're like, it's just so awkward. And I'm like, okay.
But in our mind, it's like, he just spent $100,000. So service charge of that is another $40,000.
Right.
Split between, and me and her were the only 2 left. So we got a larger cut. So we're just looking at each other like, yo, $5,000, just suck it up. $5,000, another hour, $5,000, take it.
Everybody's in my ear. They're like, make sure you get double tipped. And I'm like, how the fuck am I going to get double tipped when I can't even talk to him? It's like his handler. You know what I mean? And, you know, it's like, I think it was like 4 a.m. at that point, and he was ready to go. You know, Mr. Pink wanted to like leave. So I grabbed his like no name identification card, his black MX. I ran it, and his handlers signed it. And it was not my proudest moment, but I did pop out my left boob, and he double tipped us.
What a way to end that podcast today, homies.
And also, just FYI, we did get the double tip.
Double tip for the nip.
It was, for the record, it was really, really, really dark, and he may have not even seen it, but it was like literally on like the line.
Yes, we're gonna have to bring you back, because just that story alone, you brought up so many things that I forgot about.
Oh yeah. Be on the lookout
I like
for
forgot
part
about
2.
that story, but
Now I'm just mad I wasn't there for that.
But that was a one-time shot. That was it.
Damn, the guys are gonna be listening to this when they're like, "Where's the live video of this one?" Shit. Oh, yeah. We need you to plug your stuff, your Instagram, your restaurant, whatever you're working on right now.
You can probably find me on Instagram. I am Jasmine Vo, and you'll see all my updates. I am working on a couple of things, but you know, the ink isn't dried yet on the contract, so I can't say, but definitely great things are coming.
Thank you so much for being on the podcast today. You definitely gave some great stories and great insight. We appreciate you. Tune in next week.
Sorry, Mom.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Chaos Control, hosted by Mikey Tableman and Danny J. Gomez, producer and audio engineer Nick Dewar. Please be sure to like, subscribe, and leave a review on the Apple Podcasts app or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Join us next week for more chaos.